Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Society Focus session. I hope you've been enjoying the session so far, and we would like to zoom in now on what does AI and what does the regulation that is presented yesterday mean for society. And on stage here, I'm joined by four very distinguished speakers. Virginia Dignum, Professor of Responsible AI at Umeå University, Sweden, and associated with TU Delft. Nuria Oliver, co-founder and vice president of ELLIS, the European Laboratory for Learning and Intelligent Systems, and commissioner to the president of the Valencian government of AI strategy and data science against COVID-19. Well, we might come back to that later. Next is Benoit Rottembourg from Inria, the French National Institute for Research in Digital Science and Technology, where he also leads the Regalia project, to provide regulation authorities with software frameworks for auditing digital platforms. And finally, Paolo Traverso from the Bruno Kessler Foundation. He is Director of Strategy and Business. And the Bruno Kessler Foundation is a research and technology organization working on AI, ICT, and social sciences. So welcome, dear speakers. Before I would like to give the floor to you, I would like to ask if you would open this session by explaining a little bit on how is Europe doing in terms of AI? How is the landscape of European AI and where do we stand in the world? And also perhaps reflect a little bit on how do we ensure that AI will be used in a beneficial way to society and to citizens, and how do we prevent harms from being done? And may I give the floor first to Virginia?
Sure, thank you, Anne Fleur, for the introduction, and thank you all for being here. Yes, where is AI in, or where is Europe in this landscape? The first thing I would like to state is that I don't think we should see this landscape as a race. There is a lot of this discussion of an AI race going on, in which countries or regions are placed, winning or not winning. And from my part, it makes no sense. First, there is not a race. It is not a race because we don't have a finish line. We don't know where that finish line is. We will hopefully be developing and improving on AI technology for many, many centuries to come. And the second thing is not a race because there is not one direction to go. It's not like we all follow each other blindly in one direction. I really like, and I think that Europe is taking this approach very seriously. I like to see it as an exploration. There are many ways, many possibilities, many avenues to explore. Some of them, they might be more leaning towards accuracy and developing systems which are more and more accurate. Other ones which are much more leaning to combining accuracy and impact for society and for citizens. And I think that in Europe, we are really looking at those issues of hybrid approaches to AI, human-centered approaches to AI. And I think that's what I would like to see, that and by taking AI landscape as an exploration, we really are providing the possibilities to really find out beneficial ways, and new opportunities, both for improving on each of us as individual lives, but also in society and in our environment in general. So no race, but an exploration.
Thank you very much. Up next, Nuria.
Yeah, good morning or good afternoon. So it's a great pleasure to be here. So I think perhaps the first question is sort of like, what is the intersection between AI and society? You know, with this session is about this. And I think it's important to realize that we are in the midst of what is called the fourth industrial revolution, which is really profoundly changing all elements of society, similarly as previous other industrial revolutions did. In this context, AI is one of the disciplines that is at the core of this revolution. At the same time, we cannot forget that as a species, we actually face tremendous challenges like climate change and environmental impact and degradation, the aging of the population, pandemics, and we won't be able to tackle these challenges effectively without the help of AI. It doesn't mean that AI is the solution, but I'm convinced that we need to rely on AI to be able to tackle many of these challenges. And in this context, I think there is a reality of, even though, indeed there is no such a race as Virginia was saying, but I do think that Europe is lagging behind North America and Asia, both in research, in innovation, and in the deployment and the use of AI in the sort of like economic sector and in industry. And I think being behind or not investing as aggressively as these other regions in such a strategic discipline that is not only defining today's world, but more importantly, will define the society of tomorrow is something, that we should worry about. Because I think ensuring Europe's technological sovereignty in this discipline will be very important. From my perspective, if we want to maximize the positive impact while minimizing the negative impact of this revolution, we should focus on developing a vision for AI that is competitive, that is inclusive, and that is people and planet-centric. And I think ELLIS, the European Laboratory for Learning and Intelligent Systems, was created to contribute to such a vision by attracting, retaining, and also nurturing the next generation of excellent research talent in AI to Europe, and by focusing on research that where AI is having a positive economic and societal impact.
Thanks, Nuria. Benoit, may I ask you to present your view?
Yeah, I think as a citizen, we are confronted in our daily life more and more frequently to AI systems. Recommending you a video for tonight on Netflix, a pizza on Deliveroo or Uber Eats this afternoon, or a boyfriend for the weekend on Tinder. I mean, all these recommendations are, let's say, mainly now AI driven. So we are confronted to that 10 times a day, more and more frequently, and it influences us in really a deep part of our lives. And we don't really know what happens behind the, let's say, behind the door. What do they do? Is this algorithm fair? Is it loyal to us or loyal to another stakeholder? So my perception is that AI is rising in the interaction with us. And unfortunately, it's mainly American. Just a fact. So in the number of times I see an AI discussing with me, it's an American AI. Maybe some bricks where I'm not purely American, and it's a good, but it might be scikit-learn from Inria behind that, but mainly it's American. So it's not colonization, but in terms of frequency, it's an American language right now. So our reflection here and the work we want to do at Inria with the Regalia project is how to protect citizens from bias, disloyalty, fraud sometimes. And here AI, and particularly European AI, consciousness of all this, protecting the citizens, a bit better maybe than the American culture. Here we play a positive role, potentially in helping the regulation authorities, auditing the behavior of those algorithms. So I would say there is probably some colonization aspect and sometimes negative aspect of all this behavior of these algorithms. But it's the right time, gaining back some sovereignty and some protection ambition for our citizens, ourselves. I mean, we are all a little bit influenced by those, even if we are quite sharp in looking at these algorithms, we fell in the trap quite easily. So it's time to use AI as a protection for the regulation authorities and against what happens today.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, Paolo.
Thank you, Fleur, and thank you for this opportunity, and good morning to everyone. So I believe that it's clear that the European vision on AI is a trustworthy AI. as was clearly said today during this event. And I believe this is very good, is very proper, suited for an AI for society, an AI that guarantees human rights, AI for good, AI as a technology that is inclusive. Let me say even more, AI for all, for wealth distribution. I believe this vision, and this is stated also by the recent regulation on a European approach to AI, then can be discussed, but we'll have time for consultation about this, puts Europe in a distinguished position. This from one side. From the other side, as also Nuria was mentioning this, at the moment, the big players in AI, we know the big companies are somewhere else, in US, in Asia, in China. I don't need to say the name. But my question is, should we fight against them? No, I don't believe we should fight against them. We should instead try to create what is usually called a public-private ecosystem where we can guarantee the human rights, that the AI is really for people, and at the same time enable a private business where companies, especially companies from Europe, of course, small, medium enterprise, but all the companies that accept this can do their own business, but according to the European rights, that are the European rights to guarantee the rules. I believe very much in this private-public, public-private ecosystem, because public has one role, the public institution, the policymaker, and our role to create an AI that is really good for people. From the other side, we cannot avoid to create business, to enable business for private companies.
Thank you very much. We are already receiving some very interesting questions. Nuria, I think you were the first to introduce this concept that we really need AI for societal challenges. Could you give some good examples of that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think any of the challenges that I mentioned, we will be able to solve them better, leveraging AI. But perhaps, given that we've been fighting the COVID-19 pandemic for over a year now, I can share some of the personal experiences on using data science and sort of like data-driven algorithms to help policymakers make better decisions in the Valencian government in Spain. Basically, since March of 2020, I have been working as commissioner to the president of the Valencian region. And the purpose is basically lead a team of volunteer scientists from the Valencian ecosystem, working on helping the government transition to what is called evidence-driven policy making. So to help them make decisions related to the pandemic that would be informed by evidence and by scientific knowledge, as opposed to by rumors or intuitions or pure political interests. And we've divided the work into 4 large work streams. The first one is modeling human mobility. We know that an infectious disease that is sort of like transmitted from person to person doesn't become a pandemic if people don't move. And that's why they confine us. So understanding, quantifying, predicting, measuring large-scale human mobility becomes very important. And since March of 2020, we've been able to analyze aggregated mobile data computed from the mobile network infrastructure in a collaboration between the Spanish National Office of Statistics and the 3 largest telcos in Spain. And that was very helpful to measure the impact of the confinement interventions, for example, on the different levels of mobility, and also make more accurate predictive models of the spread of coronavirus. The second area has been developing computational epidemiological models. And there we have built both more traditional computational models and also AI models. So in the context of the XPRIZE Pandemic Response Challenge competition, we developed a deep learning-based model that is able to predict the number of COVID-19 cases in 236 countries and regions in the world, taking into account the different interventions that are deployed in each of these countries and regions. And we won the XPRIZE competition. So it's the first time that a Spanish team wins an XPRIZE challenge. So we are really happy about that. Moreover, we were able to use this AI-based predictor during the 3rd wave of infections in Spain. The third area is building predictive models of hospital occupancy, intensive care occupancy, and also inferring the prevalence of the disease. And we are also using machine learning methods to do that. And the last big effort is a very large-scale citizen survey called the COVID-19 Impact Survey, which has reached 600,000 answers as of yesterday. And I encourage all of you to answer it. We have it in many different languages, and we have a very, very large sample from Spain, Italy, Germany, and Brazil. And it has enabled us to understand people's perceptions, but also people's situation during the pandemic. It's been a window into the realities, and it's been tremendously helpful to the government, but also to citizens and to media organizations and newspapers to really have a sense of what's going on, what kinds of behaviors people have, what kind of protection measures we take, but also what is the psychological impact, the economic impact, the labor impact of the pandemic on our lives. So I think it's been a really intense, but also exciting year of putting a lot of the knowledge and expertise to practice, in a real case, and really doing our best to help the government make more informed decisions through the analysis of data using AI.
Thank you very much, and congratulations on winning the prize. That's a very good effort indeed. Paolo, you were mentioning the public-private partnership as a really European answer in this, either it being a race or not, but at least the global field of AI. Could you zoom in a little bit on which role all the elements of this partnership should have?
So yes, very nice. Let me start from a lesson learned that we learned during the pandemic, so during COVID. In that time, of course, we played, as you may know, as a Fondazione Bruno Kessler, we played a role in predicting the spread of the virus, the spread of the infection in Italy, and not also in Italy, because also we're with the World Health Organization. But in that case, what we did, we created a system that was based on a hybrid system, like Virginia was saying before, using a predefined model, actually stochastic modeling based on probabilities, and then using data-driven techniques together in order to predict the spread of the pandemic. But the lesson that we learned, that one of the most important and really critical problem was also for people that didn't suffer from coronavirus, but suffer from other kinds of disease, like people that had chronic disease. They couldn't attend the doctor, couldn't have the doctor in their home or in a hospital day by day in a face-to-face meeting and this kind of thing. So what we did, we created a platform where the doctor can prescribe not a medicine, but something like a digital therapy, something that is full of AI to help people, persons to manage with their disease. Of course, this is a kind of layer where companies can build on top of this, but that satisfies some precise rules by the public. For instance, the data is not owned by Google, by the local government, the national government, by Fondazione Bruno Kessler. The data is owned is not the correct word, but is really managed by people. It's a personal data store, and then the person is really free, is informed in the proper way to deal with this data. So this is a way in which you create, even technology, something that is based on public rules, guaranteeing, for instance, the privacy, but also allowing companies that agree and guarantees the privacy to develop on this. At the moment, we have 140,000 people in Trentino. Trentino is a small region, is a province in Italy, using this kind of system. But I believe this model can be made in a much larger nation, or even in Europe, where there is a layer that guarantees the rules, the requirements by the public for the people. And there is another layer where companies can develop their own business. This is an example in healthcare that I believe is one of the most important parts of our life, but there is not much difference in other areas like labor, like employment, like Green Deal, like mobility, like smart cities, and these kind of things.
Thank you very much for these interesting opportunities. So let's also have a look at perhaps some of the challenges or the negative impacts that AI may have. And if I look at the questions that are being asked, Virginia, I would like you to ask if you could follow up on the question on how do we keep up in this worldwide field on and create trustworthy AI in which the citizen is really put central in a good way.
Thank you for the question. Indeed, I think I would like to follow up on what I said before. I think we really need to take an approach which is much more inclusive and much more open to different ways of dealing or of perceiving AI, of developing AI, of integrating the different aspects. So it should be a much more multidisciplinary view on AI, not so much led by what we can do technologically, but also integrating there what do we want to do as a society. If I can give a comparison with the automotive industry, yes, technology in automotive industry is about building cars that really can go very fast and can be very efficient, very the speed cars that are built can go 300 kilometers per hour easily. As a society, we do know that if we allow cars to go 300 kilometers per hour in a neighborhood with children are playing and so on, we are asking for problems. So that's why we have laws and regulations and also public awareness that that's not what we should do. So it's not because we are putting regulation in one side that we are limiting the developments in the car industry in terms of building cars which are very efficient at high speeds. So we really have to look at AI from a perspective of the multidisciplinarity. What can we do technologically? What want we to do as a society? How can we develop the laws and the regulations? But I would say even more the awareness and the incentives for putting together what can be done, what we need to do, what is beneficial for society in a way that really includes and everybody is participating. It also, if you look at AI in this way, we are also opening many opportunities for business differentiation, for SMEs, for companies in Europe or wherever, to really come up with those opportunities, those solutions, those proposals which are investing on fixing on a specific type of values, developing AI to be fair, developing AI to be inclusive, developing AI to be safe for children or for other types of demographics. There is a lot of opportunity here to put together what technology allow us to do, but not be so blinded by because we should be doing it. Now the question is much more to put together what really do we want to benefit from AI, what is really, and that is a question of awareness, a question of participation, and really to have a dialogue across disciplines and across stakeholders. And only then we really can achieve AI which is working with us and for us instead of being as driven by whatever AI can do. It's not what can, but what we want.
Thank you very much. I think you also are working on systems that try to ensure and control that AI complies to regulation in the law.
Yes, yeah. We are looking at, it's a bit this example of the like I gave of the cars. We are working on what we call the glass boxes. And a glass box allows an AI system to be as efficient or as quick as the car, but we provide this box in which we look at what the system is doing, and we monitor what the system is doing, and we through the boundaries of the box, we allow or not the system to interact with the rest of society through a monitoring and a more controlled way. So in a sense, we are putting the laws of the speed limits around the AI system without manipulating or depending on changing really the technology, and also not really avoiding or impeding that there is developments in the technology. So we really want technology to develop as much as possible in terms of accuracy, in terms of security, in terms of reliability. But at the same time, we want to make sure that those systems, when they interact with us, are aligned with what society and users really want. So we create these filters and these borders in which what the system is doing is aligned with the requirements and the desires of the society.
Benoit, I know at Inria you're also working on this. Would you be able to reflect on this, how you make this work at Inria?
Yeah, maybe I will be a bit less optimistic as Virginia, because I look at the reality today of these big platforms, and fraud exists today, disloyalty exists. I mean, it's very frequent that fraud is highlighted by European justice or even local justice. So that's why I think today, as a fact, we are a bit handicapped in our way to control to have an anti-doping, I would say, an anti-doping practice against data-driven doping of this big algorithm. So I would say we are a bit late. It's extremely hard to audit manually an algorithm. So you need an algorithm, more or less, to help you, to give you some steroids to look at what happens. And what is extremely hard is that, according to to take the metaphor of drug, every sport needs a different drug. So biking is a kind of drug, or football needs another kind of drug. So the regulation authorities for every form of drug needs different forms of laboratory and blood sample to check if this is okay. And it raises very interesting scientific challenges. How can I audit that, in average, there is no discrimination on gender for credit scoring, for instance, or for a video? A young male kid receives some kind of videos of Transformers or Legos, and a young girl received, I don't know, fairy tales, or to go into the cliche, of course. So how can the regulation, and here we have the same form of dialogue, two dialogues between technology and regulation, so legal and technology. We need this dialogue because it's an open field. We don't really know what happens, and we need to formulate correctly the rule. And then there is also another dialogue, and I follow Paolo completely on this, with the platforms. They are not completely evil. Don't be evil, but they're not completely evil. They are diabolesque, I would say sometimes, but they're not completely evil. It's not completely their fault, because they overperform, and the algorithm by itself discovers some little stuff where they can influence us, nudge us, or seduce us. So that's why these two forms of dialogue, technique with legal, we have lots of progress to do. We data scientists are very poor sometimes in legal culture, and same thing on the other side, of course. And also, we need to partner with those platforms. I don't think it's a pure stick and carrot story. I think it's more complex than that. We need to open the hood a little bit with some form of glass box, but also we need to control at some point. Everyone who was a kid knows that there is trust, but there is control.
Well, I mean, I just wanted to maybe emphasize that indeed we do need to partner. Indeed, public-private partnerships are key. But indeed, the platforms right now have shown no interest in having human wellness as their objective function in their optimization algorithms. Their algorithms are optimizing for what they call engagement, which basically means maximizing the amount of time that you spend using the platform and the maximum number of possible services that they offer, irrespective of whether this is good for the person or not, or possibly knowingly that this is actually bad for the person. So I completely do not buy their excuse, or, oh, I don't know, it's an algorithm, the algorithm, you know, and they write the algorithms and they know exactly what the algorithms are doing, and they know exactly what they don't want to do because they prefer not to know than to know, or they know exactly the research that they incentivize and the research that they de-incentivize. So I don't think they're naive at all about this and about what is going on, and they could perfectly change the objective function in their algorithms and maximize the well-being of people instead of maximizing the amount of time that people spend using them and exploiting weaknesses in human behavior and developing highly addictive patterns to maximize the amount of time that we spend using them. So I do think that this is happening. And I do think that if there is no external pressure, probably things won't change. And that's why, coming back to Virginia's comment, it is so important that we have civil engagement and that we have a movement in society defining what is it that we want. I completely agree that not every technological development is progress. And what we should invest on and what we should fight for is for progress, right? So we need to define what do we understand by progress. To me, progress means improving the quality of life of everyone, not just a few people, but also the rest of living beings on the planet and the planet itself. And I think if we ask ourselves, you know, is this technological development contributing to progress, or is it actually hindering progress or taking us, you know, one step backwards? But we don't have those kinds of informed conversations because that would require also investing a lot in education in broader terms, which I think is lacking right now.
Nuria, thank you so much. I think this is a very thought-provoking end of this session because we're already 2 minutes due. So I would like to thank you all very much for this very interesting session, and I will quickly go back to the main stage. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Merci.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.